Good evening, everyone. Guys, this is an emergency World War III nuclear Armageddon update. It's only going to be a short video, guys, so please stick with it. So the news out in the media in the last couple, in fact, how long? In the last, less than an hour. Ukraine-Russia war latest. Putin open to nuclear tests as Zelensky discusses ending hot war phase. So this comes about, guys, today as as President Zelensky is talking about a peace deal, talking about ceding ground for NATO membership. Guys, it's all white noise. The real thing to take out of this is that the Russians are planning. If they're talking about it, it means they're going to do it. So, guys, I just want to recap on a few things that I've said previously in previous videos and on our live streams. So when people are worried about, is this going to cause nuclear Armageddon? Is there going to be nuclear war? One of the first things I say is no. The first step would be a series of tests. I've been very clear about this, guys. I've not been throwing out wild accusations and wild theories about things. I know how these systems work. The Russians have a heavily corrupted system. I mean, they can't even get body armor to their guys that's not heavily corrupted. They can't even get armored plating on their vehicles that's not made of cardboard. So do we really, and this kind of stuff, just conceptualize this for a moment, guys, all right? You are in the Russian military and you may have to use your trucks. Somebody in that supply chain, and it's well documented that the Russians went into combat with cardboard as armored plating. That it's out there, guys. I'll put some links in the description. It's not, there's no question. Now, if those guys who were involved in that level of corruption, if they decided, hey, you know what, these vehicles may be used, but we're still going to try and pocket a few quid and put cardboard in these, rather than armored plating. That's what they do to things that there's a good likelihood of those being used. What do we think's happened to the nuclear weapon capability that is very unlikely in normal times to be used? Of course, people have been on the take. Of course, there's been some sort of, scientist who's been getting paid for, who's been getting paid to produce tritium, and they've not been producing tritium. They've been buying yachts and investing money in in the London, in a London property portfolio, allegedly, and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's what I think. Well, I would pretty much give 100% certainty to the Russian stockpile of nuclear weapons has been drastically degraded. Now, I keep saying this, guys, and I've been saying it for such a long time. The first step before anybody flings any of those, those mushroom cloud kaboomas over is a series of tests. Now, these tests that they do, they're not just saber rattling. They are confirmation tests as well. That's so the Russian scientists, technicians, engineers, they understand that they can do it because there's a lot of things that have to happen right at the right time. And there's no real tolerance for error. I still think the most likely place for one of these things to be used is in the Kursk region. It would tick all Russia's boxes, but it would also, not give NATO or whoever we're talking about now, because if you've been watching my channel, guys, I've said how NATO is irrelevant, but it wouldn't give the international community wouldn't bound together as they would do if they struck Poland, Romania, a big city center. If the Russians use a nuclear weapon on their own territory, where does it say that, it becomes into a gray area, it becomes opaque, it's very difficult to mitigate against. So, guys, let's just go to the share screen and we'll see what the article says. Ukraine-Russia war latest. Putin open to nuclear tests as Zelensky discusses ending the hot war phase. Again, this is what I've said would be the first phase of seeing one of these things actually used. So this is the first, in fact, where have we got here, guys? Russia is open to resuming nuclear tests for the first time since the Soviet era. One of Vladimir Putin's serious, I'm sure they're all serious, senior ministers has said. This is a question at hand. Sergei someone told TASS State News Agency. And without anticipating anything, let me simply say that the situation is quite difficult. It's constantly being considered in all its components and in all its aspects. You see, the Russians know that when they start testing these, it's going to cause escalation from NATO. It's going to cause the escalation from the United States, because nobody knows 100% with 100% certainty if their nuclear weapons are going to work. There's a lot of decaying materials. There's a lot of materials that just, they have a sell-by date. And whereas the United States military, NATO, the French, they will be spending a lot more money in keeping their equipment up to date. Still, until somebody tests it, there's no real way of knowing. Russia, which has not carried out a nuclear test since 1990, withdrew last year from the global treaty banning such tests, in a move Moscow said would bring it in line with the US, which signed but never ratified the treaty. It came as Volodymyr Zelensky suggested he would temporarily cede Ukrainian territory to Russia in exchange for joining NATO. So this smoke and mirrors right now, guys, but Volodymyr Zelensky saying that he would cede territory. Like, it's never going to happen. Who's going to, even if Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin, even if they give bro high fives and said, look, we're going to stop this war, there would still be conflict out there for the next 10, 20 years, because there's that much munitions out there. There's that much hostility. You can't just turn the switch off right now. If we want to stop the hot phase of the war, we need to take under the NATO umbrella the territory of Ukraine we have under our control, Mr. Zelensky told Sky News. We need to do it fast. We need to, and then on the occupied territory of Ukraine can get them back in a diplomatic way. So, guys, what I'm reading here with this is boots on the ground now, under the guise of a pretend ceasefire. And then once we've got boots on the ground, the ceasefire will fall. But guess what? We've already got boots on the ground. So those boots on the ground will be used in an offensive manner. That's the way I'm seeing this, guys. Now, look at this bit here, guys. We need to do it fast. Remember when I said in the last video, 31st of December? I'm sticking by that, guys. I really am sticking by that. Because if Zelensky can come out now and have some sort of, peace deal, some sort of, we're going to have a ceasefire if you guys stop pushing. Remember, this morning on this morning's video, I showed you how much ground the Russians are taking on a daily basis. If the Russians were to come to this agreement and say, right, okay, we'll go with this, and I don't think they will. I really don't think they will. But if they were to do that, that would give the green light for the boots on the ground. Get the boots on the ground as quickly as possible. Once you've got boots on the ground, then you have mission creep. Then the ceasefire fails. The ceasefire doesn't hold. There's an incident. There's a black swan event. Doesn't really matter. I think this is just smoke and mirrors, guys. It doesn't really matter how they do it, but boots will be on the ground, guys, at some point. But let's keep this to the in fact, should we go on to that, guys? I said I was going to keep this short, so let's keep this onto the nuclear nuclear rhetoric. So this is what's happening right now on the ground, guys, in Ukraine. This is what's happening in general. All this talk about, about this peace deal and the ceasefire, it's all smoke and mirrors. The real play here is NATO boots on the ground. Now, I think I'm going to do a separate video on this, and I'll link together quite a few articles. But if as soon as the Russians test fire a nuclear weapon, the likelihood of them using one goes up by an order of magnitude. Why does that happen? Well, they figured out, they know they can do it. Why wouldn't they at that point? At that point, why wouldn't they? I mean, they've already used these mid-range ballistic missiles, so it makes no sense for them not at that point. At that point not to use these nuclear weapons. Guys, I still think the most likely place this is going to be used is a low-yield tactical nuclear weapon in the Kursk region. These are the steps towards it. And again, guys, go back through my videos. I've said these are the steps that you would see. So, guys, we're seeing the steps that I said we'd see. So, you know, guys, just take all of this on board. Be cautious about things that are happening. Imagine right now where you would be if and when this does happen. How the media is going to be an absolute feeding frenzy. Vladimir Putin uses nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons used for the first time in anger since the end of the Second World War. Vladimir Putin, nuclear weapons, Vladimir Putin. Imagine your local town. Imagine your local supermarket. Imagine trying to get toilet roll. Guys, the situation is already out of control. There's no real way to go back now for peace. I mean, the only way for peace really is if the Russians leave Ukraine. Now, do we think the Russians are going to leave Ukraine? No, of course not. So do we think the Ukrainians can push them out? No, of course not. So where are we going with this? Where do we go with this? How do we get a peace deal on the table? Guys, I just see this as white noise. I don't see it going anywhere. If there is a ceasefire, that is only going to be to get boots on the ground, and then the ceasefire will be broken. There isn't any other way back now, guys. Anyway, guys, listen, I said I was going to keep this short. I want to keep this short. I'm going to mag to grid, and I'll get you guys another video later.